Hi everyone. Anthony Fan Blam Blim Blam Blim Blim Blow here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new deluxe edition of Eminem's Music to be Murdered by Side B, the B-side thing. I'm so sick and tired of this trend. An artist releases a record, and then within days, in this case like a year, they drop a deluxe edition of the record that's essentially an entire album on top of the album. Now, in the abstract, this sort of thing isn't completely unorthodox. Lots of records over the years have received deluxe releases that expand quite a bit upon the original track list, but usually this privilege has been reserved for albums that have withstood the test of time, kind of gained classic status. But now, thanks to the streaming era, any artist can just add hours of material to a totally mediocre record that if you took their entire discography, it wouldn't even rank in the top 3 of all of their releases. And what's up with titling this thing Side B, as if the bulk of the material here is either from the original Music to be Murdered by sessions or creative headspace, when that couldn't possibly be the case considering the recency of the references in many bars on this project. Eminem wasn't dropping COVID lyrics in 2020. For the most part, here it just sounds like Eminem, legendary rapper Eminem, who needs no introduction at this point, is just recording a batch of songs that are somewhat in the same vein, but just far worse than most of the material on the original record, and just tagging it on. Listening through this thing, it's just so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. He should have taken 3-4 tracks from this thing tops, made them bonus tracks, and called it a day. I don't even want to go over this thing. It's like trying to pick through a bunch of rotten produce with flies swarming all around it, and I have to take a bite of it to tell you guys how it tastes. There's Black Magic, another painfully overproduced Skylar Grey track with a glitzy beat, overwrought flows, and lovesick bars that are corny even by Eminem standards. She cheats and I catch her like the common cold. The similes on this thing are painful. We're an unlikely pair, like 2 different Nike Airs, and then he goes on to say that he and this woman are soulmates. Get it? Soul of a shoe? And of course, like most women he shares feelings for in his music, on this track, there is a point where it's time to die. Yeah, there's just like a bunch of stabbing sound effects and knives and screaming. But somehow the sudden Imagine Dragons reference worked into a bar about pulling this woman's hair is more offensive to my tastes. Then there's Alfred's theme, whose instrumental literally just features a sample of the Alfred Hitchcock theme. In many respects, this track almost feels like classic Eminem, very animated, zany energy, lots of Foley sound effects, some cunning lines here and there, one about how he still gets the bag even when he puts garbage out. At least he's self-aware about it. But that being said, the sample barely feels in sync with the stiff-ass drums on this track. Plus, there's no shortage of corny bars, too. I'm about that capital like a proper noun. Every line's obscene. The pervertedest mind got the dirtiest rhymes stocked. That's why there's parental advising every time I drop. When will it end? Despite my complaints about this track, it probably would have been fine in the original track listing of Music to be Murdered by, I guess. But then from here, there's the incredibly tedious Tone Deaf, where Eminem kicks the track off saying he has an ear infection and he CUNT figured out. Oh, And the bars on this one are so evil, so edgy. Eminem can't be tamed. But yet he literally shrunk at the fallout on that homophobic Tyler the Creator bar how many years back now. Not that I'm encouraging Eminem to engage in more callous behavior on his records or anything, but I feel like given the past instances of him showing himself to, I don't know, care about others, be sympathetic, that sort of thing, it's a little inauthentic at this point for him to constantly paint himself as just being such a bad boy. The track Book of Rhymes is sort of a hilarious concept because it's Eminem portraying himself as just emptying the rhyme book. This is the stuff I've had locked in the vault for a while now, guys. Here we go. Haven't used all the tricks I have, so like my balls in my bag, get a little testy when I'm mad. Yeah, Eminem was really just like hunkering down on those balls and testes bars for a while. God, there's so many poo-poo and pee-pee bars all over this thing. Like that one bar where he's talking about peeing on someone's head like a Philly hat. A pee on the head. I guess I like that on the track the flows are tight and Eminem continues to adapt to more, I guess, trap aesthetics on the instrumental side. A few of the beat changes are cool, but when it comes to the content, it's not it. The song Favorite Bitch is Eminem essentially rapping about the first love, the most major passion in his life, hip-hop, likening it to a woman, and if it's a woman and Eminem has feelings for that woman, be she figurative or otherwise, you know what that means, time to die, because yes, after some weird bars about how this love of his is like a slut now and she's getting like, you know, felt up by other guys. Simile check, I'm just trolling you pussies, but I'm like a stroller because you'll see just how I roll if you push me. You know, if you want to portray yourself as tough, step one, don't liken yourself to a thing that you push babies around in. But yes, on this track, we eventually do reach a point where he's like, you know, telling music, shut up, bitch. I'll kill you, bitch. Don't you dare leave, bitch. I'll put two in your head, bitch. Plus, the narrative of the track is kind of confusing. He seems to paint as glorious the moment in time where he helped blow up the career of Curtis or 50 Cent, which, like, if you're portraying yourself as this, like, substance over everything, lyricism over everything, artistry over everything type of guy, like, what was that? 50 Cent helped, like, cheapen, commercialize, and commodify the hip-hop genre just about as much as anybody else could or did. I mean, of course he wasn't like the only example. You have all of the executives, all of the labels, dudes like Jay-Z who, you know, wasn't just a businessman, but a businessman. So I guess all I'm saying here is like, Eminem was clearly a part of and complicit in the cheapening of hip-hop as an art form, the commercialization of hip-hop as an art form, and when, you know, you're opening the door for the success of someone like 50 Cent, where do you think things are going to go from there? If this wasn't enough, the following track with Dr. Dre, Guns Blazing, is an accusatory song where, yeah, it's like M and Dre just like going at these two women that they hate. It's really just like too much at this point. It's too fucking much. Then the track Matt is packed with a painfully corny and boring COVID bars, even some weird bat sound effects. And then Jesus, the weird child killing bars and like that threatening reference to Mike Pence that isn't a reference to Mike Pence, but it is a reference to Mike Pence. Like, the beat and flow switches on this song in the second half are pretty much the track's only saving grace. Then Higher almost sounds like Eminem's own version of an inspirational, like, college dropout Kanye hit with the grand chorus vocals and everything. It's worth debating whether or not he actually pulls the sound and style off well, but I do think this manages to be one of the better tracks, at least in this track list. Simile check though, but I'm up like your feet in a recliner, and I think I'm about to go out on a limb like a tree climber. Not only a weird place to go with the rest of the verse in context still, but what an oddly redundant simile, even with the reference to feet and legs. Going out on a limb like a tree climber? I mean, when people think of going out on a limb, a tree is typically in mind. No need to remind us of climbing a tree in the process of saying you're going out on a limb. Oh, look at me, I'm gonna bring you this pepperoni pie like I'm a pizza delivery guy. Somehow the record continues to go down from here creatively. The bar, some are like bees to flowers. Why? Because some people find me appalling, is actually one of the most appalling bars on this record. Then there's the Key skit where Eminem is indulging in all of this goofy ass Muppet singing about like hot chicks and stuff. I think this is easily one of the worst skits to make it onto a hip hop album ever. I mean, it literally makes, not that it's a hip-hop album, but it makes the Beavis and Butthead cuts off of Speeding Bullet to Heaven sound like comedy gold. Killer is a very generic, low-key club banger, surprisingly inoffensive. Meanwhile, the track Zeus is pretty tolerable, features a nice chorus from White Gold. Beat is okay, and Eminem's voice seems to even out a little bit. He's not quite as obnoxious here. Then, miraculously, the closing track, Discombobulated, sounds like Eminem from 20 years ago. When you're talking about the quality of the writing and the vocal delivery and the ease of the flow on this track, it's really some Lose Yourself, almost like a Eminem show, era Eminem. It's not quite as urgent or as meaningful as that big anthemic single, but it's at least like kind of funny and seems a little lighthearted and is throwing out some kind of clever jabs here and there. I mean, if Eminem has been capable of pulling a track off like this the entire time, why isn't the rest of the material better? Look, guys, I don't know. I mean, there were a couple of tracks and moments here that I thought were decent to good. I will say decent to good, but the vast majority of the material on this LP is either just embarrassing, even by Eminem standards, or just shouldn't have seen the light of day by virtue of being pretty redundant in his overall catalog. He's not really saying anything new or profound or interesting at this point. He's just giving us another fucking track where he's killing a lady. Getting another track of cringy love bars. We're getting another track of, oh, I'm the pariah, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm gonna eat some worms. Which, okay, you can do that, but don't record a song about it, because then I'll have to review it, and I just don't want to. So, yeah, this wasn't really great, and in a way kind of disappointing too, because I do feel like the original Music to Be Murdered By was a bit of a bounce back for Eminem. It was certainly better than Kamikaze was, and leagues better than Revival was, and it was almost like, hey, he's a little bit on an upward trend here. Let's see how far this goes. But yeah, I think he just kind of gave himself the excuse to drop trash by labeling all of this stuff B-side, deluxe. If people hate it, they won't, hold it against the original LP if they like it. So, plus tagging this on to the original record puts me in a place where I don't need to think of anything new or exciting or different, because everyone will view it in the same lens as the rest of this album. Same album cycle, same vibe, same whatever. Feeling a decent 2 strong 3 on this one. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, music to be murdered by forever.